What's up, guys? My name is Shawnee Says, and today we're going to be reading from r/EntitledParents. This story is by Square Technology 325. Entitled parents angry at grown daughter for moving out. Entitled mother got her entitled daughter 3 cats to cure her depression. They took no care of them, and the cats got fleas. Tons of fleas. So I, as the oldest daughter, decided to move out at 19. I looked for an apartment to rent and found one a few weeks ago. I'm now 20 and it's almost 100% furnished. Last week I moved in, even though my kitchen isn't here yet, because I was covered in flea bites. And when I say covered, I mean covered. My feet, legs, arms, and even neck were burning and had tons of little open wounds. 2 hours after I moved in, it started with the messages in the group chat. Entitled mother: come back home. You shouldn't be living alone as a woman. Entitled father: tell me where your apartment is so I can get you. People are going to gossip. Entitled mother: unmarried women don't move out. You come back home ASAP. Entitled father: I know you see my messages. I will come get you. Entitled sister: you're so dramatic because of a few bites. Since they know where I work, a few days ago they waited in the car in front of my job. Entitled mother and entitled father: once I threatened to call the police. Entitled mother stopped and left me alone. Entitled father sent me like a billion messages calling me a bunch of bad words, etc., disowning me. Happiest I've ever been to have my own place now. I can't harass you like that in the States or Canada, so I'm kind of curious. I don't know how it works in all countries, but I assume it's not legal to do. The story is posted by Leva Kaleidoscope 32. Entitled mother's son needs to look out my window, even if it hurts me. This happened a few years ago on a transatlantic flight, 7 hours or so. I had a window seat, and entitled mother sat down next to me with her son, maybe 5? She seemed nice enough, and the kid was pretty well ensconced, sorry about pronunciation, in a box of animal crackers. Man, I totally should have brought some animal crackers before boarding. Anyways, after she'd settled their things, she said to me, he'd really like to look out the window. Would you mind switching? She was more or less polite, but I could sense the undercurrent of entitlement, and I was just not in the mood for it. Being polite but firm myself, I responded, I prefer to stay in my seat. Also, it's an overnight flight. I gestured outside. It's dark out. She shifted from politely waiting for me to do her bidding and escalated to the caring glare. Just switch with him. He wants to look outside. So you want me to sit between you? What? No. He'll take the window while you take the aisle, her expression added. Obviously. Geez, how clueless can you be? I stared at her, wondering what the hell was wrong. And you might be also wondering what the hell is wrong with me. Why didn't I just switch, right? Well, you see, what isn't obvious to you but was plainly obvious to entitled mother was that my arm was in a sling. If I moved to the aisle seat per her demands, that arm would be in the aisle, fully available for bodies and beverage carts to bump it throughout the long flight. Just sitting next to someone was a calculated risk, but since it wasn't like I could afford to book an empty seat just to baby my lemon of a shoulder, it was the lesser of two evils, one seatmate versus an entire flight's worth of traffic. When it became clear that entitled mother wasn't going to make the connection without some guidance, I pointed empathetically at my sling. I messed up my shoulder a few days ago and it really hurts. I don't want people bumping into it. The Karen glare intensifies. People aren't going to bump it if you're not leaning out of your seat into the aisle. Please just let him look out the window. She did say please, but she was basically speaking in the Karen voice by this point, so please was doing as much heavy lifting as it would if she were saying, please go get your manager so I can have you fired. I'd basically had enough at this point, so I just took a muscle relaxer, put on headphones, and knocked out for the flight. Because F her. When we landed in London, the kid was out cold and entitled mother looked like she was on the verge of hallucinating from lack of sleep, though she still mustered enough energy to shoot me the tired Karen glare. I think she legitimately spent the entire flight fuming that I wouldn't let her, now sleeping, son look out the window at I seriously considered telling her I'd done her a favor. After all, if he'd spent that long looking into the void would have eventually begun looking into him, and that may have been the muscle relaxers talking. Too long didn't read. I'm not going to spend a long flight letting people bump into my injured shoulder so your kid can look out the window at nothing. I hadn't been on a flight since I was 3, so I might not know how it works, but if she wanted a window seat for the kid, why didn't she try to buy a window seat? Or why couldn't she have gotten on the plane earlier and tried to get it in my window seat? Her ignoring your arm is kind of really, stupid. Because you most definitely would have been hit in the arm with a cart. This story is by Scarlett Absolutely, I think. Diffusing a full-blown Karen fit with a single quip. A "my husband's the manager" story. This happened at a supermarket I worked at a few years back. Every so often we'd have a 3-day 77-cent special on a dozen of white eggs while the brown eggs stay the regular price. This in turn gets some customers whatever they can to get brown eggs for 77-cent sale price. Brown eggs are typically 50 cents to $1.50 more expensive than white eggs, and at least in the region of the country I live in, a good number of people have been duped into thinking that brown eggs are better because brown eggs are local eggs and local eggs are fresh. So, on one such weekend, this woman places a carton of brown eggs on the register belt and says, "My husband said I could have these for the sale price. He couldn't be here to confirm with you because he's at home watching our kids, but he told me I could just tell you he said that it would be okay." The cashier looked at her and meekly said, "I'm sorry, who's your husband?" To which the woman confidently responded, "Mr. Such and Such." The girl responded with a confused, "I'm sorry, who?" The woman then exclaimed, "Mr. Such and Such, you know, your store manager." The poor 16-year-old cashier then made the mistake of telling the woman, "I'm sorry, I'm not sure if Mr. Such and Such is our store manager's name," and the woman absolutely freaked out. "What do you mean you're not sure of the store manager's name? Are you new here? How do you not know your store manager's name? Where is your supervisor?" All the while, I'm bagging the woman's other groceries while not so sadly snickering to myself, which caused the woman to turn her attention to me. "And you think this is so funny?" Now, I wasn't in the greatest mood at that particular moment because it was a busy day. I had been pulled from my usual department to bag groceries, and I wasn't happy about it. I'm part of the freight crew, so I usually stock shelves. I wasn't in a bad mood. I was in more so of a no crops left to give mood. So I looked at her with my best poker face and said, "Well, ma'am, I'm sorry you have to hear this from me, but your husband, Mr. Such and Such, got transferred to another location 3 years ago and no longer works here. He must have forgotten to tell you. So will you be purchasing the brown eggs at their full price, or do you want me to run and grab you a carton of white eggs?" In the driest, most deadpan customer service voice I could manage. All of the woman's confidence and carenness immediately deflated, and she quietly agreed to me grabbing a carton of white eggs for her. By the time I returned with the white eggs, she had decided that she didn't want to talk to a manager after all, hastily paid for her order, and swiftly left the store. It wasn't the first time I dealt with that "my husband's the manager." The first time I dealt with it, our manager had been a woman, and the reaction I got was just as satisfying. And I know it probably won't be the last. Man, I get secondhand embarrassment from those stories. Just imagine being able to muster up the courage to go do that to a cashier and lie through your teeth. People are getting ballsier and ballsier as time goes on. That's all the stories I'm going to be reading today. If you do like my voice or can tolerate it and you want to hear more stories, please hit like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. I'm going to try and post as much as possible. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys